How's it going, everyone? We are on the scene over here in your neck of the woods, South Carolina. Anyway, got a customer who has got a big old Peterbilt truck, and they want a new inverter. They had an old WFCO inverter in there. It was about 20 years old, and it finally gave up the ghost. They did all that they could do, that knew to do to keep it going, but it just wasn't going to go anymore. So they gave us a call. We're going to put a 2,000 watt Victron inverter in today, and that's about it. Nothing fancy. There's no solar involved. It's just kind of a simple setup, but we're gonna get that inverter put in, get it wired in, and that way they can run their coffee pot and run their laptop computer. Guys, don't forget to give us a subscribe, please, and leave a comment. Feel free to leave a comment. Give us thumbs up or thumbs down if you don't like it. But any kind of feedback is very much appreciated, and let's get started. Well, here's the old inverter, 600 watt, and over the years they've done some things to keep it going. They were talking about how they've replaced that breaker in there, and I guess there's a fuse or something in there too. I can't see where they were talking about now, but anyway, she's about 20 years old. She's been in that truck a long time, riding around in a hot old compartment. And so anyhow, they're ready for a new inverter. They're ready for something a little bit bigger, more robust, because Mama likes her coffee in the morning and wants to run the coffee maker and the laptop without having to turn on a generator and waking up the husband. So that is a rig. Right over here where the door's open is where they had the inverter. So you've got your hydronic heating unit here. You got a furnace over here, and then back there on that back wall is where they had the inverter all these years. And then of course you got your fuse block up there, and then right over there is their charger to charge their battery with. Well, obviously that Victron ain't going to fit in here, and I don't know that I want to put it in here anyway, because it gets hot in there. There's no air conditioning in that compartment. So we're going to put it on the other side of that wall, which is the other side of the front of the booth seating. This is actually underneath a booth where their table and bed and all that is. So their house battery is just one lonely AGM battery. They've got I think they said 4 lead acid batteries that they've just replaced as their chassis batteries, and when the truck's running, it's charging the house battery, but when the truck's off, it's just the house battery on its own. So right down here in this compartment, I may have to go get them to unlock it. Yep, I think it's that front compartment, and that's where he showed me. Yeah, everything's looking locked. Anyway, I'm almost positive it's in this compartment is where the battery is, but like I said, just one 31 group size AGM battery is what they're using for the house. So it's not like they need long hours of inverter time, but this Victron's going to take the job of that WFCO we saw in the golf cart. It's also going to take the place of that that charger we saw on the wall in there. So I got this out today, got it all programmed up, and now I'm gonna go put it in. Let's go look inside. Alright. So here's the rig. Don't want to get too intrusive. But yeah, this is their RV on their truck, and this is what they make their living at. But you can see there's the compartment right there we were just looking in, and right down here in the front is where we're going to have to put that inverter. And because that inverter is as tall as it is, I'm sure we're going to have to put that inverter sideways there. But the old inverter, it just ran a couple circuits. We're not talking about anything big, heavy, robust. Here's our DC cabling from the battery for that inverter. And then where'd those plugs go? Well, you remember seeing on the side of that inverter, it has a GFCI receptacle. And they just had those plugged into it. And these guys here just run a few receptacles throughout the sleeper. I think they said 4 receptacles. You know, so we're not talking about running an air conditioner, running a refrigerator. They've got an absorption refrigerator anyhow, but and not even talking about running the microwave. You know, they she said I think one or both of these receptacles are on a circuit, but she just wants to be able to run her Keurig and a laptop. TV too, I think. But anyhow, kind of got a lay of the land there. So probably gonna see if I can't take that table out of the way or put it up or something, give me some room. But that's what we're doing today. And it's a time factor just because of creativity. You're gonna have to creatively figure out how you're going to install that, how you're going to run your wiring. It's time consuming just because of the thought you got to put into it. But once you get your ideas planted, then it's all downhill from there. So we should be able to get this knocked out by dinner time tonight. So let's get started. Oh, I know the lighting is bad right now, but it is 7 o'clock and I'm wore out, tired. I've been at this for about 5 hours. And I've got the inverter installed. I've got all the AC side of things done. Now I got to do the DC side. And this truck sits so low to the ground and my belly sticks so high in the air that I'm not getting under this truck. So we're gonna have to come back another day. I'm gonna bring back my guy Austin with me, who's strong, tall, and skinny, and we're gonna get him under the rig, and then we'll be able to run our 2-aught cable from where the inverter is underneath across the sleeper berth to the other side to the front of the sleeper berth. There's a battery compartment there, and then that's where we'll have to hook into the battery. But geez, I mean, that's all I got left to do. 12-volt cable, negative cable, and then I'll need to do a chassis cable for the inverter box. But here, let me show you what I got accomplished today. It's crazy because it's like you look at the situation and you're just like, ain't bad, you know, pretty cut and dry, and then you start getting into it and you're just like, cut and dry. So this is where we're at the moment. Let's see if I can get a little light on the situation. So, because of confined space limitations, we got the inverter in here sideways. Got the cover off of it so that I could mount through bolts through our inverter feet through the wall here. Now you can see they got aluminum tubing frame for the booth, and I put my through bolts right through square tube aluminum frame right there. The bottom ones not so much, they're just kind of into the wood, but those top ones are they're doing the brunt of the weight there. Like I said, I got my in and out AC voltage wired in, and just running through a hole that was already in the wall that was a ventilation hole. And right down there is my voltage in, voltage out circuit breakers. And the setup that this customer's got is those outlets right there are energized by breaker panel over here. 20 amp breaker energizes that receptacle, and in the old setup their WFCO inverter would plug into that, and then the other side of the inverter had the GFCI, right? Well, they had two plugs that plugged into the GFCI that run the circuits. Well, there's your two plugs right there. So I had to install that GFCI receptacle down here, and so the AC out of the inverter energizes that receptacle there. We plug those two plugs in, that runs to all the circuits that they want to be able to invert on. And so that's where we're at currently. That hole right there in the floor, if you can see it, is where their 2 gauge wire was run through, but my 2-aught is going to eat up that whole hole. So I'm going to be able to get either my 12 volt positive through that hole, but I'm going to have to drill another hole for the negative cable. And anyhow, that's the long and the short of it at the moment. But other than that, it's a very simple setup. We're just putting an inverter in. Just had to, you just have to wire it in. Wire in the batteries, wire in the pass-through AC voltage, and there you have it. So we're calling it a day today, and we'll be back with my guy Austin, and we'll get that DC cabling run, and they should be ready to rock and roll. So for now, good night. All right, I think it's time for an update. And that's Max. I don't know if you guys have seen him before or not. We got a few people around here. Max is our summer help. And he's a good guy. He's good help. So, anyway, we are back at the Kenworth, and with the Super Sleeper. This one. I was just going to give you an update, about what we have done, what we have accomplished, and what we're going to do today to get it finished up. So let's go have a look. I guess the thing that you, the viewer, don't realize at the moment is that this is turned into a multiple day job. Yeah. So anyhow, this should be last day. But as you can see here, they've got shore power hookup. That was always there. But this is the utility compartment, if you will. And we're going to be able to see some of what I've done from here. You can see, let me turn the camera down a little bit. You can see right here is a receptacle, a GFCI, and there's 2 plugs in that GFCI. Well, those 2 plugs are energizing the 2 circuits that the customer wants the inverter to run. So if you can think in your mind's eye, the inverter AC voltage out is going to that GFCI. And that's the only thing it's running, is that GFCI. And then you plug in those 2 plugs there, and those are just running to certain receptacles throughout the sleeper. So, and like I've said in the beginning of the video, customers just wanting a inverter to be able to run their coffee maker in the morning and run their laptop. They don't want to have to keep firing the generator up every time they need to use some wattage. So I don't know if you noticed right down here on the floor below the GFCI, we've got a 30 amp breaker a couple pass through there for the neutral and the ground. We installed that down there on the floor with a little piece of DIN rail. And then I'll take you inside and show you the inverter and what we did there. And today, to wrap it all up, we're going to put a battery in. Got a 240 amp hour AGM battery. So that guy is nice, good, and heavy. Anyway, they have a 31 group AGM battery in there currently, and they only had a 600 watt inverter to begin with. So, you know, that one battery, it worked well with that inverter. But this battery, 2000 watt Victron inverter, it don't like this battery. So, I mean, it works, but it taps it out pretty quick. So, we talked to the customer, got their permission, and we're going to put in this Victron 12 volt 240 amp hour battery. And Max forgot his knife. Summer help. What are you gonna do? So here's that 31 group I was telling you about, and we installed up here, where my finger is, we got us a inline fuse. And I honestly, folks, don't remember what the fuse rating is for that. I could just take the cover off and find out. There you go. What does that say? Anyway, so we got the inline fuse for the inverter. So we built a cable from the battery to the fuse, a cable from the fuse all the way across the sleeper underneath through the frame to the back to the inverter back there. And then of course we've got our negative cable over here that we had to build for the same route. But we're gonna dismantle this situation right here and put a new battery in. And last time I was here, when I had these cables off, I took my little Dremel with the cleaning wheel on it, and we cleaned up these contacts so that there wasn't any corrosion or debris or anything. Everything's nice, clean copper now, so everything was going to be right. So we're going to get this new battery in, and then we're going to run our temperature probe, which is why I've got Max with me today again, so he can get up underneath this thing and run some wire. Plug that into the inverter. We should be ready to rock and roll. Should be good to go. So let's get started. Well, Max, while Max, scratch that. While Max is doing that, let's go inside and I'll show you what it is that we've accomplished thus far. Okay, got a little light on the situation. Down here is the breaker panel. So that's where our shore power and our generator run to the transfer switch right here on the right, that box on the right. And then we got our breaker panel here. That breaker all the way to the right there, that 20 amp that I just turned off, is the voltage that goes to our inverter here. Well, how it does that, it runs from that breaker all the way through here, and it runs to this receptacle right here that my light is shining on. All right, so that receptacle right there is energized by generator or shore power. And this cord right here, that cord we installed, that runs to the AC voltage in to the inverter. So that cord will run back all the way over here through the hole in the wall and goes to AC in on the inverter. Now that white wide wire you see there, that runs out to that GFCI that I showed you guys. That is right there where those plugs are plugged into. And then of course that supplies the AC voltage to those circuits I was telling you about. Well, this receptacle is one of those circuits that the inverter runs. I don't think it's this one. Pretty sure it's not that one. One of those up there on the wall, coffee maker plugs into. I think she said there was 3 or 4 receptacles that the inverter would run. Well, so we got our inverter there, and that's the long and the short of it, really, guys. You know, a lot of time was spent in here having to move stuff around because this receptacle was not there like that. It was actually right here. If you can see the rectangle cutout in the wall, that's the back of the inverter I put in right there. So this used to be over here, and right down here where all the cabling goes through, that was just a ventilation hole. Had a vent cover on it like that. So we had to remove that, and it just made for a nice hole to run our DC cabling through, our AC voltage through. So anyhow, we are very close to the end. So we get that battery in there, get that battery wired up and everything truck-wise wired up. And we're going to give it a test run by running the coffee maker on inverter. So anyhow. Okay, guys, we've got the old Kenworth wrapped up. As you have been watching, we've installed a 2,000 watt Victron inverter, Multi-Plus 2, and we've just installed a 240 amp hour AGM battery, and gave it a test run, brewed a cup of coffee with it, and it did the deal. Went through the whole brewing process. It's a Keurig, I'll show you, but it went through the whole brewing process on inversion, and we've got a successful setup here. Let me show you the finished product. All right, so here's what we installed here in the battery box, and I think I showed you earlier the customer had a group 31 sized AGM in here, but man, as you can see, there's a lot going on with 131 group battery. So you know, and when you're upgrading from a 600 watt inverter to a 2,000 watt inverter, and the coffee maker requires 1,400 watts, you're going to have to go to a bigger battery, something that's going to be that's got some deep power in it. So anyhow, got our temperature probe wired in here. We had to build the cable, of course. We used 2-aught cable from the battery to the inverter. We installed that Blue Sea inline fuse up there, A&L fuse, and yeah, man, we got something good going on here. This is the battery that the customer had in there, and if you saw all those cables that were on there, right? Yeah, they had all those positives on here, all their negatives on here, and then I discovered after the fact that there's posts here, you know, so I mean, it didn't have to be so heavy on, you know what I'm saying. But anyway, still, at the end of the day, it's not a very big battery, right? You would brew a pot of coffee with that, and that's pretty much going to tap that out. Over here into our utility closet. I think I showed you this already, but anyway, inline 30 amp breaker there, that receptacle on the back wall. Those 2 plugs in the receptacle are what feed the inverted circuits. That's how the customer had it before, and that's the way they wanted it to continue to be. So over here, this little blue 2-gang receptacle, that's what feeds the voltage to the inverter when we're doing the whole pass-through thing. So right now we're on shore power, as you can see that there. And so of course that energizes this guy back here, which the plug in it goes to the inverter, and in charge mode, charging the batteries, and of course it's passing through and energizing everything in the coach and even the inverted circuits. Let's go inside. All right, get a little flashlight on the situation here. But here's the inverter, and as you can see, the yellow light's on, which is the charge light. We got it all buttoned up, and right down there is where our cabling comes through the wall. You can see in the floor there, we got that plastic ring protecting where the cabling goes through the floor. But man, guys, it's a pretty simple setup. Even though it was simple, it wasn't easy. Had to move some things around, and had to play with the programming of the inverter. The initial setup needed to be tweaked, but we've got her programmed. Like I said, we brewed a cup of coffee. Customers should be happy. They're a husband and wife truck driving team, and when the husband's sleeping in the morning, she wants to brew a coffee. She don't have to fire up the generator to do that, and every time she does, it wakes him up. And I bet that makes him cranky, and that's not good, especially when you have to live in a close quarters situation such as this. I mean, there's full-time RVing, and then there's this. It's a small camper on the back of a big rig. But anyway, a pleasure to meet these folks. Great folks, and wish them well on their future endeavors. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next job. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share. We appreciate you watching very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.